Hello and welcome to the Absolute Beginner Guitar Lesson Series. My name is Oliver, and before I go any further, I would like to take this time to invite anyone who may be watching one of these videos for the first time to go back and watch the previous videos. The lesson series is designed so that each video builds on the previous videos. So it would certainly be helpful if you did go back and watch the previous videos, but every lesson is still a standalone video. So hopefully if you haven't seen previous videos, it shouldn't be an issue for you. And another thing too, if anyone at all is watching these videos and they like the videos, they think that that person could benefit from them, I'm going to ask you to please hit the like button. And also for anyone who's watching these videos regularly and who thinks they may be able to benefit from, the whole series, please subscribe to the channel. So I know that there are people who are watching these videos and interested. There's a whole ton of videos on YouTube and stuff gets buried there, so the chances of people even coming across this video are somewhat remote. So it'd be good to know if people are coming across it and they may actually like the videos. So it'll be motivation for me, because there's no money in this for me. There's no notoriety. This is all about me trying to help out some beginners with some things that I know. But anyway, enough of that stuff. As always, I hope you have your guitar out and tuned to standard pitch, ready to go. And I guess we can get into it. Today's lesson is the fourth and final lesson in a series of lessons that are centered around the notes on the G string. And we've done a similar series. The first one we did was based around the notes of the B string, and then we moved to the E string, and now we're on the G string. And in the first lesson of this series, we learned to identify notes on the G string, specifically notes that are in the C major scale, because this is a scale we're familiar with by now, and we've been working with it for a while, so we want to stay in familiar territory. And the second lesson, we learned a couple of different fingerings that would allow us to play major chords whose root notes are on the G string, up and down the neck. And the last video, we kind of did the same thing for minor chords. So today I just want to kind of put it all together, and I want to apply these chord fingerings to the scale tone chords in the key of C major. So at this point, anyone who has notes that they may have taken, particularly if you have notes from lesson 3 where we sort of studied the scale tone chords, now would be a good time. But if not, that's fine. Maybe you get out a piece of paper and something to write on, and maybe you just write down the name of these chords and we'll be fine. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using just the first 3 strings of the guitar, and that is the E string, the B string, and the G string. So we're going to be using these 3 strings of the guitar, and all of our root notes to these chords will be found on the G string. So what I want to do first is I sort of want to, we're not going to start on G. We're going to start with A minor, just because I want to sort of work our way up the neck. So the first thing I need to do is I need to find the root note. And I can find the root note to the chord at the 2nd fret of the G string. And once I find the root note A, I just need to apply our minor chord fingering. And we have the A minor chord. Now in terms of numbers for the key of C, this is the sixth chord. For those who aren't familiar with numbers, if you number the notes of the C major scale, A is number 6, and the chord associated with number 6 is minor. So our first chord is A minor. Okay, so the next chord in the line is the B diminished. And anyone who's been following these lessons knows that we haven't really been dealing with the diminished chord. We're going to get to it, the diminished triad, I should say. We're going to get to it at some point in the lessons, but it's not used very often in popular music. And we can play thousands of songs using these scale tone chords without ever having to use the diminished chord. So I figure, why spend a bunch of time, playing this chord when we're not really going to be using it. So I'm going to skip over the B diminished chord, and that brings us to C major. And of course, C is the first note of the scale, so this is the chord that I like to refer to as the one chord. So we need to find our root note, and we can find that at the 5th fret on the G string. So we have the C root note, and our chord is major. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply our major chord fingering, and now we have C major. And we're just going to keep moving through the sequence. The next chord is going to be D minor. So our root note is currently at C at the 5th fret of the G string. So to get to D, we just need to move up a whole step or 2 frets. So I'm going to move my root note up from the 5th fret up to the 7th fret, and I have the D note. And from here, I'm going to apply my minor chord fingering. And now I have D minor, which is also known as the 2 chord when we're in the key of C major. So moving on, the next chord is E minor. So we're already in a minor chord fingering. So really all we need to do is sort of slide this up the neck until our ring finger finds the root note, E, at the 9th fret on the G string. And we have E minor. Moving on, the next chord is F major, and that's the 4 chord. So we're at E minor with our root note on the 9th fret of the G string. So now we need to move from this E minor up to F minor. So we just need to move up 1/2 step or 1 fret. So now our ring finger is on the root note F at the 10th fret of the G string, and we have F minor. Or excuse me, I'm sorry. Our chord is major. Forgive me. So what we want to do is we want to do the same thing. We want to move up to our root note at the 10th fret of the G string. That's the F. But because the chord is major, we're going to apply our major chord fingering. And now we have F major, also known as the 5 chord in the key of C major. So moving along, our next chord is G major. So we're at F major with our root note at the 10th fret on the G string. So we just need to move up a whole step, which is 2 frets on the guitar along the same string. So we're going to move our root note from this F at the 10th fret up to the G at the 12th fret. And our chord is major. So now we're going to apply our major chord fingering, and we have G major, which is the 5 chord. And finally, we're going to finish off with A minor. So we're at G with our root note at the 12th fret on the G string. To get to A, we just need to move up a whole step or 2 frets along the same string. So we're going to slide up so that our ring finger plays the root note A at the 14th fret, and the chord is A minor. So we're going to apply our minor chord fingering. So that's the fundamental information of the lesson. We essentially played through the sequence of the scale tone chords. Now, it may seem a little unusual to you because we didn't start on the C major chord, but we don't always have to start on the 1 chord for a song. So it's important to understand that we need to be able to find any of these chords at any time. So it's beneficial to work with the chords in different ways, in different orders, if you will. So we don't get used to playing them in one specific way, and then when we have to do it another way, it becomes foreign to us. So what I'd also like to do is I'd like to take a look at these scale tone chords, starting with the 1 chord, the C major chord. So now we have the challenge that we need to be able to locate our C root note. And I can locate that at the 5th fret on the G string. And our 1 chord is C major. So now I apply my major chord fingering and we have C major. And we're just gonna run kind of through these chords from here, not taking too much time. The next chord is going to be D minor. We're at C major. We just need to move our root note up 2 frets, 1 whole step up to the note D, and our chord is minor, so we apply our minor chord fingering, and now we have the D minor chord. Our next chord is E minor, or the 3 chord. Our root note is at D on the 7th fret of the G string, so now we need to move that up a whole step. So we're going to slide that up to the 9th fret to get to the E root note. And our chord is minor, so we're going to apply our minor chord fingering. So now we have E minor, also known as the 3 chord in the key of C major. So we're at E minor. Our next chord is F major, which is the 4 chord. So our root note is at E on the 9th fret of the G string. So now we need to move up to F. We only need to move up a half step, which is 1 fret. So now our root note F is at the 10th fret on the G string. And our chord is major. So we're going to apply our major chord fingering. And now we have the F major, which is the 4 chord. Moving on, our next chord is G major. So we're at F major and our root note is on the 10th fret of the G string. We need to go to G, so we need to move our root note up a whole step from F to G. So we're going to move this up from the 10th fret to the 12th fret where the G note is. And our chord is major, so we're going to apply our major chord fingering, and now we have our G major chord. And finally, I want to finish up with the A minor chord, which is the 6th chord. So we're currently at G major. Our root note is on the 12th fret of the G string. So we just need to move that up a whole step from the 12th fret up to the 14th fret. And we have the A root note. And our chord is minor, so we're just going to apply our minor chord fingering. So now we've essentially basically played the same chords. However, we changed the sequence. We started this time on the C chord, which is the 1 chord, and worked our way up to the 6th chord. So from here, now we just want to find ways to sort of work with this, to sort of get good at switching between these major and minor chords, and also recognizing the root notes and getting quicker at finding the chords. So we're just going to apply the same strategies that I've recommended in other lessons. Essentially, play it the 2 ways that we've just played it. Start down here with the A minor chord and play through until we get to the A minor chord up at the 14th fret. Again, skipping over the B note. So you're going to have to know the jump from the A root note at the 2nd fret up to the C root note at the 5th fret. And then, of course, we want to be able to play this in reverse order. So we want to be able to start with our A minor chord where our root note is on the 14th fret of the G string and sort of work our way back down through the sequence till we come back to the A. And we want to do the same thing with the other way that we did it. And that was starting with the C major chord, working our way up to the A minor, and then working our way back to the C, because it's important to be able to play these in ascending order with the notes, the root notes getting higher, and also to play them in descending order. We want to be equally good with both. So that's the basic fundamental lesson. And before I go, I want to take a few minutes to just sort of review what we've done so far in the lesson series. If you've been following the lesson series, and hopefully anyone who has sort of gone slowly and methodically and sort of made sure that they understood what was in each lesson before proceeding to the next lesson. But if you followed this methodically and you've been practicing this stuff daily, you now have 3 complete sets of major and minor chord fingerings to use. So now we have at least 3 fingerings for every chord that we've been playing. And we have fingerings based on whether the root note is on the G string, the B string, or the E string. So now we have a lot of tools in our toolbox. And I think what I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to hold pat with what we've covered so far and not really introduce new strings. However, the next series of lessons is going to be on chord voicing. And chord voicing is something that we can use to not only make our playing more interesting and more tonally diverse, it's also something that we can use to make playing easier. So we're going to start learning on how we can combine different root note fingerings when we are playing in order to, again, make our playing more interesting, but also to make our playing easier. So I hope you'll tune in for that series of lessons. It'll probably be at least 3 lessons. We have a lot of material that we have to work with now. So now I want to start us to really starting to work with this stuff, working with chord voicing and also applying these chord fingerings to chord progressions. And also what we want to do is we want to start to maybe introduce working in new keys, because everything we've been doing is in the C major, the key of C major. Our notes have all been based around the C major scale. But the reality is the rules for C major, the key of C major, apply to any major key. So we can use these chords to play in any major key. The only difference is the notes of the scale that the key is based on will change up a little bit. Maybe we'll introduce some sharp notes or some flat notes. And obviously the sequence of our set of scale tone chords is going to change. And you will play chords that you've already played. However, the sequence will change. So whereas, the C chord may be the 1 chord for the key of C major, when we get into another key, the C chord is not going to be the 1 chord. But anyway, that's all I really want to say. I hope you guys are practicing this stuff. It's going to take a while before you can play these chords comfortably and get to the point where you can move them around. So there's a lot here to practice. And what I would recommend is that we're going to start with possibly the notes on the B string, and we'll warm up by playing some of those notes. And then when we feel comfortable, now let's start working our major chords that have the root notes on the B string. And then maybe after that we work the minor chords, and then at that point we go to the scale tone chords for the key of C major. And then we want to repeat the entire exercise, or the entire routine, if you will, for our notes on the E string and our notes on the G string. So if we go through this, we have plenty of material to practice. And as you gain more information and more knowledge, if you practice the stuff that you know regularly, your practice time will increase. And once we've gone through each of the stuff that we know that are based around each of the strings we've worked with, then we can maybe start to apply some of the chord progressions that were mentioned. I can't remember what lesson it was. Lesson 8 or 9, somewhere around there. There's a lesson on whiteboard lesson on chord progressions where we went through a whole bunch of chord progressions and I asked you to write them down on paper. So that's the next level of what you want to do with this stuff, is say, okay, I feel good working with these chords that are based around notes of the B string. Let me just play through these chord progressions using this set of chord fingerings. And then we want to go ahead and play through those chord progressions using the fingerings for the root notes on the E string. And then we want to do the same thing with the root note on the G string. And what you're going to find is if we start to practice on in all these different ways, all these things, we're going to have a fairly significant practice routine. So if you do build a routine like this and you practice it regularly, I would like you to practice it daily, but I understand that people have lives. So if you can at least try to practice it most days of the week, and if you only have time to practice it one day a week, you can benefit from that. Just understand your progress is going to be much slower, and you may have trouble recalling some of the information if you wait a week in between times that you practice. But at some point, even at that pace, the information will become internalized, and you'll still start to you'll make plenty of progress. So that's it. I don't want to run on any more about this. So all I have to say is, put in your time, put in your work, and I hope to see you back for the next series of lessons where we're going to start really learning how to work with all the stuff that we've learned. Peace.